So thanks for joining us today for AutoEnter Live. My name's Andy, and I'm going to be talking to you for the next 25 minutes or so about shipping with FileMaker and shipping with Claris Connect. A little background about me. I got my start in corporate IT, did publishing, and I went to become an independent developer about 20 years ago, 25 years ago. I've been doing FileMaker work for almost 30 years. I've done MySQL, Microsoft SQL Server, PHP, and the fun information is I've got 2 dogs, 4 cats, 4 chickens, and a hedgehog. Had to update that. We got 2 new chickens and 2 more cats recently. A little bit about NRG. We're started in '96 to provide publishing workflow automation solutions. We've been doing shipping solutions for over 15 years. I had been working with a lot of customers in the Mac space that wanted to be able to ship, and the carriers didn't have anything that worked for them, so we produce solutions that work. So we've been doing single and multi-carrier solutions for the individual carriers and up through enterprise shippers. Some of our customers' volumes range from 10 to thousands of shipments per day. Everything we do is carrier certified, so we work very closely with UPS, FedEx, the Post Office, DHL, Canada Post, Purolator, Australian Post, and about a dozen other freight companies as well. Sometimes customers can get carrier subsidies to cover the cost of our software, which is kind of nice. Everything we do runs on Mac, Windows, iOS, and through WebDirect. Everything we've got is desktop based, so we have the ability to customize, which is actually a unique benefit that we have against some of our software as a service competitors. Everything we do supports carrier supplied printers and scales. We're working on some future hybrid options with cloud visibility. We also do have some options to use APIs from other providers like EasyPost, ShipPo, etc. for doing some labeling. So the first thing we're going to do today is talk about Claris Connect. Claris Connect has a UPS connector. We've looked at it a little bit, and I've got 2 demos to show you. The first is going to be a simple form submission that has nothing to do with FileMaker. Just takes a form, uses Claris Connect to send out an email label. And then the next thing we're going to do is get in a little more in-depth with FileMaker sample that goes through rating, shipping, and voiding of shipments. So here I've logged into Claris Connect, and you can see I have a few different flows that are set up. The first one we're going to look at is the form submission with Mailgun. So this is super simple. I went in FormStack and I created a form that will basically pass back a few pieces of information for doing a sample request. So we have a name, an address, a city, state, zip code, phone, email, and then some particular product that was requested. So when that is submitted, that will trigger the sample request action in Claris Connect, and then it will take the information that came through the form, and I pre-populated the shipper information in here, and then the recipient name gets set from the form data, and then we have to set a package type and some dimensions and a weight and a service. So that's pretty simple. And then the last action we have here is actually sending the label with email. We ended up using Mailgun to do that because the label that comes back from UPS is going to be an image, and it's base 64 data. And with Claris Connect, there was no way to decode the base 64 data and set it up as an attachment or things like that. So using Mailgun, we created a HTML body, and inside of the body then we dropped in the label component using tags for an inline image in the HTML instead of sending an attachment that wouldn't be readable. So here we've got our sample form. We'll fill it in real quick. And we're going to request product A, and we'll submit that form. So that's done. And now that we submitted the form, that's going to run our Claris Connect action. And then in our inbox, we're going to get this email right here. So we can see that the sample was requested. Here's my name. Here's the product I requested. And then here's the actual shipping label that has the ship from, ship to information. And it's ready to be printed and shipped out. So the next thing we're going to look at is using Claris Connect along with FileMaker to rate, ship, and void a transaction. So we'll go back here and look at our different flows, and you can see here I've got 3 additional flows that are created. This first one here is for rating, and this takes a script trigger, which is going to come from FileMaker, and it's going to look at a function. It's going to say go out and get a rate, and then we're going to check that for errors. And if we don't get an error, we're going to go back and edit the record, and then after that we're going to execute a script. So let's look at the database first before we dig into the details there. So I took the sample FileMaker invoice database and I added some fields to it for a ship method, the weight, the dimensions. I added a portal in here to show our different rates. So we've got a service, the days in transit, and then our cost information, along with the build weight. So if we rated something that had larger dimensions and it would go over, that would come back and it would show that in the rate. And then I also added some error debugging in there too, just in case we send invalid data, so that we're not waiting for rates or not getting incorrect or not getting correct rates back. So this is pretty simple here. When we have our rate button here, basically we go out, we build a JSON chunk with the ship to information, and then we do a simple curl request with a post that's going to send that data. So again, if we go out and we look at this get rate, this is going to take the data from our trigger. It's pre-populating the information in here to start with our postal code and things like that. And then we're taking our FileMaker data, which is the ship to information. We preset the country, we preset the packaging type. It's got dimensions in inches, and then we've got our actual dimensions. One of the things here that's interesting is with Clearas Connect, dimensions are required. With UPS, it's not required to have dimensions to get a rate. You're always going to get a better rate or a more accurate rate by passing the dimensions, but it's not a requirement even though Connect requires it. So then we've got our weight. So those are the basic fields in here with Connect for getting a rate. And then we can see here, after it runs, we've got edit record, which is just going to take our ID that was passed from the initial request, and then it's going to pass back the response from UPS. And then it's going to run a script in our database to parse the rates. And then we're done. So if we flip back to FileMaker, and then we look at our trigger then for the post rating, we can see here we've got parse rates. So it runs the script, passes the data as a script parameter. We make sure we're on the correct layout. We then go through, make sure we're on the correct record. We clear out the build weight that was in there. We delete any previous rate records. And then it looks to see if we actually got a rate back or if we got an error. If we got rates back, it loops through and creates portal rows in there with the days, the service, and the cost information. So let's run that and see how it looks. Right now we had a package in here before where we rated. I'm going to change it to 2 pounds, and when we rate it, we're going to see that our dollar amount here changes. So that came back pretty quick. So when we hit the rate button, it sent the data to Claris Connect. Claris Connect went out to UPS and got the rates. It then sent the data back to our FileMaker server, and then it ran the script trigger to update the rate portal there on the server. Now, if we went in here and we typed in something that was invalid, like bad dimensions, and we run a rate, you're going to see it cleared out the rates, and then it's telling us here that the package exceeds the required dimensions. And you can also look in here and put some debug information in there if we wanted to look at that JSON down the road. But we can go back and put in some valid information again then and get our rates. And we can see we're back there again. We've got our service selector pop up here, and now we want to ship this. So the shipping flow is very similar to the rating flow. It's going to take the data from FileMaker, and we'll scroll down here again, and we can see we're setting the ship to information, the dimensions, and the weight, and the service. And on success, it's going to update the JSON field in our database, and then it's going to run our script to parse out the results. And again, if we got an error, it would throw the results from that error into that transaction. So we're going to run it. Let's run ship. And it brought back our tracking number, we've got our cost, and we've got a shipping label right here. So that's pretty cool, and it actually worked pretty quick. Granted, there are then different points of failure as well, right? Because we're going from FileMaker out to Claris Connect to UPS, back to our server, and then we're running the script to get that label. But again, it comes back really, really quick. And if we wanted to void the shipment for some reason, we have just another flow in here. And this one's pretty simple. This is the cancel shipment. It just accepts a parameter of the tracking number. And again, it's going to update our record in FileMaker and run the script after we do the void. So there, the void was successful, so it cleared out the cost and tracking information and our label image. And let's just take a look real quick here then at the script. So after we run the ship transaction, we get the JSON back, and we're just going to pull out the elements in there for the tracking, the cost, and the label image. So the label image is going to come back as base64 data, so we're using the FileMaker function base64 decode on that JSON. We're setting it as a GIF image, and that drops it right into that container. And then on the void transaction, similar to the other ones, we take a look at the result that we've got coming back. If we don't have an error, we're going to go out and just clear the track, cost, and image information. And one of the other things you'll see is we do some error checking in here. Again, best practices, right? So when we run the button for shipping, we're going to look at it and say, hey, is there a tracking number in there already? If there was, we would have thrown a dialog to say it was already shipped. And we could add additional validation in there too to make sure that we've got a service selected or a weight is selected, or since we're using Claris Connect here, we want to make sure that the user entered dimensions. So we wouldn't want to run weights or run a shipment unless that information was actually there. So that's a really quick demo showing how to use the UPS connector in Claris Connect to do rating, shipping, and voiding. Now the UPS API does provide a lot more functionality. Claris Connect only implements those 3 different methods. There's other things in there for doing address validation. Oh, there's actually a tracking in there too. But it doesn't support the full set of the UPS API. So next, let's talk about what is NRGship. NRGship is 7 different vertical products that we produce using FileMaker. We also have a native Cocoa app for Mac OS, which is just for basic UPS domestic shipping. We've got about 1,000 customers over time using FileMaker in our runtimes. All of our solutions have different integrations to e-commerce systems, so we can import data from Amazon, BigCommerce, Magento, NetSuite, Shopify, WooCommerce, PayPal, and again, many others in there. And we've worked with a lot of different FileMaker vertical developers as well, companies like Ace, JobPro, and KeyBiz to provide shipping functionality in their solutions. And when we look at our different vertical products, we've got a lot of shared functionality between them. So let's talk about workflow with a typical FileMaker business solution and how shipping kind of fits into those things. So generally, your FileMaker database has companies, people, sales, marketing. You've got quotes, orders, invoices. You send your data out to QuickBooks maybe. You've got your products, you've got production, you've got inventory. But shipping is always kind of this forgotten thing in a lot of different businesses, but it's is a huge time saver, and using NRGship, it allows for seamless workflow. So let's talk about the touch points of shipping in a business, right? You've got customer service. You've got the ability to produce quotes that are going to have accurate shipping on it. You've got invoices and then final shipping down at the end. So when we talk about it being more than shipping, we think about rates and transit as we were looking at before. So when you're on an order or an invoice or even a quote, you have the ability to go out and get rate estimates ahead of time. Maybe you produce or maybe you provide free shipping, so it's nice to know what the shipping costs are going to be. Or if your customers are paying the bill, you can give them different options. And then post-shipment, it's also tracking. So visibility for customers and internally in the organization or for reporting, how many shipments are we doing on time? How many shipments did we send out that maybe have exceptions? And you can get ahead of customer service issues. Instead of customers calling you to check on shipping, you can be proactively tracking and looking for problems. One of the things we're really great with is hardware support. So you can take Zebra printers that UPS or FedEx are going to give you, plug them into your Mac or Windows. They work with NRG. Same thing goes with digital scales, USB scales, serial scales. And then we work with network devices as well. What's really kind of pretty cool is you can take Zebra printers, put them on a network, and then if you were doing shipping from an iPad or from Web Direct, we can print to those printers over IP, or we can use a solution called PrintNode, which allows the browser then to access devices like scales or the printers connected to an actual regular workstation. We also work with a bunch of different dimensionalizers, pretty cool hardware. super expensive, but you can drop a box onto it and it's going to tell you what the weight is and what the dimensions are, so that you don't have to figure those things out or spend time measuring or have parameters in your system to do that. And then again, everything we've got runs on Mac and Windows too. One of the things that's pretty neat is we're promoted by the carriers. Since we're carrier certified solution, UPS and FedEx are actively promoting our software all the time. So they're out in the field. Their sales reps know that if they go into a business that was using FileMaker, or perhaps they're on Mac, that NRG is the solution for their customers. So why use NRGship? Again, it's carrier certified. We go through an extensive process every year with UPS and FedEx to ensure that we support all of the latest features and functionality that they provide. It's robust and reliable. We talk directly to the carriers. We're not a middleman as part of the transaction, like when we looked at Claris Connect, or if you're looking at somebody that's software as a service. We go out from your workstation, we go directly to the carrier, we get the data, and it comes back super quick. It's also customizable to the workflow. So if you're using software as a service, the way that everything works on their end is the way that it works. Easy to implement, or it could be east. Everything we do runs on Go, Pro, WebDirect, and then server side. And you get updates. So when the carriers make updates, it's not you as a developer having to know what's going on with UPS or FedEx and making changes and billing your customer. We update the software, you can update it for your customers, and you're ready to go with the latest functionality. And we provide support. So we provide great support with things like printers and scales. Getting all of that stuff set up can be problematic for some, and we walk through all that with you. And our pricing starts at $640 for the first year, which is pretty cheap. If you're going to go out and try to implement APIs directly, you would be spending a considerable amount of time and effort. So let's take a look and see how NRGship works with FileMaker Pro. Here's a sample database that we have for our integration that's included with our files when you download it. This layout was built to run on using either client, or you could use it using FileMaker Go. It's a simple layout here where we've got the ship to information for an invoice, we've got the shipping status, the weight, the service, and some box information. So maybe somebody is running this on an iPad and they're going to be picking orders. So you could give them an order list and a pick list and some other information. So we've got the ship to here. If we click on this, you can see we've got an option here to validate an address. This one wasn't shipped, and we can go in and enter our weight. And all of the services are going to come back, and we've got it sorted by cost. The user could pick different box sizes or things like that too to set the dimensions. And then when they're ready, we can print a label. And you can see there that the status is now shipped. We've got a tracking number, a date, and the cost information. So if we opened up the shipment in NRG, you can see here, we populated all of our address information, the phone number, the email address, and here's our packages. If we were doing complex shipments, we could have different service option types like Saturday delivery, residential delivery, heavy goods, things like that, or access point deliveries. And then on a package, you can do lots of different things, different delivery confirmation types, shipper release batteries, and things like that. At the package level, you can set reference fields for invoice numbers and different things, or set declared values. You can go out and you can have barcodes print on the labels or things like that. And we even have the option here that if you had an iPhone on your Mac, you could take a picture and show what's actually in the box to track those types of things. And then we support the different notifications too with UPS. So you could go through and do that as well. Some of the other options we have is things like logos on labels. We have doc tabs down on the bottom, or you can do custom information that prints on the label as well. So if we go back to FileMaker into this integration sample and we take a look at scripts, creating a shipment in NRG is pretty simple. We just have a basic script that is create a related ship record. So if we go up to manage database and we take a look at this really quick, we've got our order line items, and there's a simple relationship in there to the UPS table. Now, if you were shipping with multi-carrier or one of the other solutions, it's basically the same thing, just different table names in there. But multi-carrier, all you would have to do is you'd be related to our ship table in multi-carrier, and you'd set a carrier and a service field. So here we've got a simple relationship. Orders go to shipments, shipments have packages, the shipment has rates, it's got tracking information, and then you're tracking activity. And then we also build in a relationship then from the line item. So if you were doing an international shipment, you would take your order line items against our product table so that that would be passed for electronic invoicing. So if we go back and we look at our script in here, it's pretty simple. We go through and use a bunch of set fields. So in this script, we go through and we check to see if it was already shipped. We check for some basic information like the minimum data required to create a shipment, so the ship to name, and things like that. We set the service, we set the company, we set the email value if notifications are set for it. We can do things again like gift box messaging, so that gets set in there. And then we've got some logic that if it was an international shipment, we would go through and set maybe the terms of the shipment, and then we would set our commodity information. And then after that, we're going to set our packages, and then we're done. From that point, we could then run the next script. We could say ship it, right? So we could just have the ship button like we had in here, and it's going to ship it. Or we can run a script to show the NRG interface for creating the final shipment. So maybe if you're doing something a little more complex, it might make sense to use our interface instead of building out your own interface, since it's complete here. And then you can take advantage of that. And then once it's shipped, we run a post-shipment script, which is then going to pull that tracking number and cost information back into your database. And once it's shipped here, then we've got a little void button that shows instead. That's going to void that transaction, and then we could go back and reprocess it or do something else. So that's a pretty simple way to get shipping labels created in truly a matter of minutes. This script here can be built probably in about 10 minutes for basic shipments to get things going. Some of the other things you can do is things like third-party shipping too. So if your database had fields to hold preferred carrier accounts and things like that, that could all get passed across so that when it comes time to ship, your shipping staff doesn't have to think about anything. They're just simply hitting a button. The labels are going to print and the cost information is going to come back. So as you can see there, it's very, very simple to ship from NRG. So the last thing we wanted to talk about today is some of the alternatives to NRGship or using Clearas Connect. So one of the pretty popular options out there is ShipStation. So ShipStation is software as a service. It can connect to FileMaker, but it doesn't have the seamless integration like we've seen with some of the other things today. Basically, you could have an order that gets sent to ShipStation, and then we'd have to pull back the status or use webhooks to get things updated. So let's just do a quick look and see how things look there. So in this demo file, I've got an order up on my screen here. We've got our bill to and ship to information as well as our order items. We can see here we've got some buttons for sending to ShipStation and updating from ShipStation. So let's take a look at some of the scripts with that. In order to get started with ShipStation, we had to build some scripts in the background before we could even push the orders to ShipStation. So if we took a look at this, we've got a script in here to get a list of the carriers that were set up in ShipStation, get a list of the services, and then also get a list of the stores. So one of the things that's really nice about ShipStation is they support a lot of different carriers. They also support a ton in terms of e-commerce integration. So if you were doing multi-channel sales where you're selling on Amazon and Walmart and Newegg and things like that, instead of pulling all of that order data into FileMaker, if you're just going to be shipping it, it might make sense to use something like ShipStation so you could pull up those orders into a queue, ship them out, and be pretty efficient with it without having to spend so much time on all that API development. So once we got those background scripts created, we went out and we created a script to create an order in ShipStation. So this goes through and it checks again to make sure it wasn't shipped already and things like that. And then we set our API keys, and this is using Monkey Bread to make the communication because this customer here wasn't using newer versions of FileMaker. So we go out and we set a carrier code, and we're using some of that lookup tables that we had created before to set those different things. We set our keys, and then we go out and we build the JSON for our line items. We set some additional options like phone number and a store ID. If it was insured, we set a value there. We create the ship to, the bill to, and then we create the order JSON, which is our order number, dollar amounts, and things like that, email addresses, packaging types, and things like that. And then we do a post out to ShipStation, and the response back from that essentially is the internal ShipStation order ID. So we get that, we get the order status back from that, and we're essentially done. So at that point, the order is put into a queue in ShipStation for somebody to fulfill, and then we can either take webhooks or we can run a server-side script or even just this button here to then update the order from ShipStation. So we go out and we check the order status, and then if the order has been fulfilled and shipped, we then go out and we get the fulfillments and get the shipments, and then we pull the tracking information back in. So ShipStation doesn't have the ability to do things like we looked at before, where we wanted to see rates in FileMaker for our shipment. You can't do that. You have to send it to ShipStation, and then from that point, you could run the rates and take a look at things there. But you'd have to ship it and then pull the information back to get your final shipping cost. So again, not as seamless or as nice as some of the things you can do with NRG or other solutions. So in closing, I just want to thank you for your time today. If you have any questions about shipping, if you have questions about integration with other web services we've talked about today, or anything else, feel free to reach out with my email and phone number here, and we're happy to talk to you anytime.